Inside the marble-lined auction hall, crystal chandeliers glimmered and cameras hovered. The city's power players had gathered for the deal of the year. Developers in sharp suits whispered over wine, their eyes fixed on a prize worth millions. But tucked in the back row sat a man in worn boots with his young son at his side, carrying not fortune, but a promise that could shatter every expectation in the room. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Let's begin. The September sun had already dipped behind the skyscrapers when James Parker guided his old pickup toward the Hawthorne auction house. Neon from high-end boutiques shimmered against the truck's faded paint. Inside, crystal chandeliers and velvet ropes framed a world far removed from his own. James straightened his thrift store blazer and took Ethan's hand. At 10, the boy's eyes were wide with awe and unease. Around them, men in tailored suits whispered, glancing at the pair with amused smirks. To them, James and his son were intruders. But James's heartbeat stayed steady. Tonight was about reclaiming Willow Creek, the land his family had lost when banks and bad luck conspired years ago. He had promised his dying father he would bring it back. Every sacrifice, every extra shift, every dollar saved had led to this room. The auctioneer's gavel cracked like a gunshot, and murmurs fell silent. A sleek presentation of Willow Creek flashed across the screen: rolling fields, river access, and future development potential. Richard Collins, the city's golden developer, lounged in the front row with a smirk, his silver cufflinks catching the light. The opening bid rang out at $2 million. Hands shot up without hesitation. James squeezed Ethan's shoulder, feeling the boy's tremor. When the bidding reached $3 million, James raised his paddle for the first time. Heads turned, laughter rippled through the hall. "Cute," someone muttered, "the handyman's playing rich." But James's gaze stayed fixed on the auctioneer. Ethan looked up at him, startled but trusting. In that instant, James thought of his father's weathered hands planting the last oak on Willow Creek, and knew he couldn't stop now. The auctioneer's voice rose, crisp as a metronome. $3.5 million. $4 million. 4.5, the crowd shifted, curious now. James's paddle went up again, his jaw tightening as whispers swirled around him. Richard Collins finally straightened in his chair, his casual smirk fading. He raised his own card, barely glancing at James, as if swatting away a fly. $5 million, called the auctioneer. James didn't hesitate. 5.5, he said firmly, his voice carrying across the velvet room. A hush fell. Even Ethan blinked up at his father, sensing the stakes. Collins's eyes met James's at last, sharp, assessing, before signaling $6 million. Cameras from a local business channel swung toward the unlikely challenger. James's pulse thundered, but he lifted his paddle once more. He was all in. The room could laugh or sneer, but this was his family's fight. As the auctioneer paused to verify the staggering bids, a rustle swept through the back rows. A woman in a navy dress rose, walking briskly toward James and Ethan. She was in her late 20s, sharp-eyed yet warm, holding a thin leather folder. "Mr. Parker," she whispered, "I'm Anna Rivera, your father's lawyer's old assistant. I tracked you down after seeing the listings." James frowned, stunned. "I have proof the Collins Group used predatory contracts to push your family off Willow Creek," she murmured. "If they try to contest your purchase, this will hold them off." She slid the folder into his hands. Ethan stared at her, amazed. Anna smiled at him, crouching briefly. "Your dad's been fighting a long time, kiddo. He's not alone anymore." James felt something shift. After years of isolation, suddenly there was a second voice on his side of the table. James flipped through Anna's folder under the table. Inside were photocopies of contracts, maps, and an old black-and-white photo of his father standing at Willow Creek with a much younger Anna in the background. She had been a summer intern when the deal went bad. Seeing his father's face lit a fire in James. Across the room, Richard Collins noticed Anna and stiffened. "That woman has no standing here," he barked to an aide. The auctioneer called for final bids. Collins shot his paddle up again, 6.2 million. James raised his paddle immediately, 6.5. Gasps rippled. Anna squeezed James's shoulder. "Stay steady, he's bluffing. He doesn't actually have zoning clearance without you signing off." Ethan's heart raced as he clutched his father's sleeve. This wasn't just an auction anymore, it was the climax of a feud that had started before he was even born. The gavel struck down. "Sold to Mr. James Parker for 6.5 million. The room erupted, some applauding, others whispering disbelief. Collins's jaw flexed as he forced a smile for the cameras. James signed the papers, his hands steady but damp. Ethan gripped Anna's hand, grinning up at her. As they stepped out into the cool September night, a black sedan idled at the curb. Inside sat Collins, eyes like cut steel. "You think this ends here?" he hissed through the open window. "That land will never be yours." The sedan sped off. Minutes later, Anna's phone buzzed, a zoning appeal filed, a freeze on the transfer. James exhaled slowly. "He's not letting go," Anna said. James looked down at Ethan. "Neither am I." In that moment, with city lights flickering off the truck's hood, father, son, and ally knew the fight was only beginning. Back in his cramped apartment, James spread Anna's documents across the kitchen table while Ethan sat cross-legged on the floor, tracing the old Willow Creek map with his finger. Anna leaned over the papers, her brow furrowed. Collins's company bribed a zoning board member 5 years ago. If we prove it, his appeal dies. James stared at the faded ink, memories surfacing of his father's furious voice on the phone the day they lost the land. "He crushed us once," James muttered, "but not this time." The next morning, Anna arranged a meeting with a sympathetic city council member. Ethan, armed with his school's debate skills, made a quiet plea about legacy and fairness that startled the adults. The story of the underdog father and son began spreading online, drawing neighbors, union workers, and old friends from Willow Creek. Collins had money. James now had a movement. Within days, James's story spread across social media, photos of him and Ethan at the auction, headlines about "the man who outbid a billionaire." Donations poured in to cover legal fees. Anna worked late nights at James's kitchen table, piecing together witness statements and city records. But Collins was not idle. One evening, a brick smashed through James's truck window, a note taped to it, "Walk away." Ethan woke crying. James held him close, fury and fear twisting together. "He wants us scared," Anna said quietly, sweeping glass into a dustpan. Instead, James went live on local radio, vowing to fight for the land and expose corruption. "This isn't just about me," he said into the mic, "it's about every working family who's been told they don't belong." That night the city seemed to lean in, waiting for the next move in the showdown. The city council hearing overflowed with people. Union workers, teachers, and retirees from Willow Creek packed the chamber, holding handmade signs, "Let Parker build. Stop corruption." James stood at the podium, Ethan beside him clutching a framed photo of his grandfather planting an oak. Anna presented emails linking Collins to bribes and backroom deals. Murmurs rippled as the evidence was projected on the big screen. Collins sat stone-faced with his lawyers, but his hands trembled on the table. A news alert flashed on the council monitors. Federal investigators had opened a case against Collins Development. Cameras swung toward James, catching the stunned relief on his face. Outside, the crowd erupted into chants. Ethan looked up at his father, eyes shining. "Are we winning?" he asked. James squeezed his shoulder. "We're not done yet," he said. "But we're close." By spring, the court ruled in James's favor. Collins's appeal collapsed under federal charges, and the Willow Creek land officially transferred to James Parker. On the first warm Saturday, James and Ethan stood beneath the old oak tree his grandfather had planted, now gnarled but strong. Volunteers from across the city had come with hammers, paint, and food trucks, helping raise the first community center on the land. Anna, now part of their family in every way but name, handed Ethan a small spade. "Your turn," she said. Together they planted a young oak beside the old one. Cameras clicked, but James barely noticed. He was thinking about promises kept and futures built. Ethan grinned up at him. "We did it, Dad." James wrapped an arm around his son's shoulders, the smell of fresh earth rising. "We sure did," he said. "And this time, it's ours forever." Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more stories that stay with you.